Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in and tuning up. This is Scott Jensen with my Ancient Wisdom Modern Health podcast. Here, I share and explain how to get and stay healthy with Tai Chi, Qigong, and Kung Fu, mixing interviews with incredible people and my own insights and experiences. We look for timeless wisdom and proven practices to be healthy and happy today. This week we have a lot of great questions from one of our listeners, Sean Lim. I thought it would be fun to do a full episode of questions and answers. As always, I'd love to hear from you. If you have a question about this or any of the other episodes, please send them to practice@10,000victories.com. The purpose of martial arts is to give good people the ability to become strong and brave enough to protect themselves and their family. Choose to be a hero and not a victim. Train up your heroic attributes and skills long in advance of actually needing them. To be prepared for heroic action, get your physique, your moves, your skills, and your armory ready now with Northern Shaolin. Northern Shaolin is certain to get you in fantastic shape. Northern Shaolin is also fun and exciting to learn, and you will feel more confident and heroic after you practice. Start your training today. Visit 10,000victories.com. Previously, I did an episode describing the prohibitions on Qigong and Tai Chi practice as I learned them from Master Shei Pei Chi in Beijing. Today I will address two of Sean Lim's questions relating to this episode and how those prohibitions relate to the practice of external styles of Kung Fu like Northern Shaolin, Lan Shou Chuan, Pao Chui, and others, and also how they relate to healing emotional trauma and emotional difficulties. To begin, I'd like to read Sean's email. We're only going to be answering two of his questions today because of time constraints. Here's Sean's email. Dear Sifu, thank you very much for sharing your wisdom and life experience through this podcast. Listening to your words inspires me to practice and train more and gives me a greater sense of gratitude for these profound techniques for health, self-defense, and spiritual growth. Here are some of the questions that have come up for me. Secrets to protect your Qi episode. Do the prohibitions on practicing Qigong apply to Kung Fu? How do Qigong and the emotions relate? If one has negative emotions while practicing, even if they are not absorbed in them, will this have a bad effect? Can Qigong heal emotional difficulties and traumas? Thank you very much. With love and respect, Sean Lim. So let's address how the prohibitions on Qigong practice apply to Kung Fu. And by Kung Fu at this moment, I'm really referring to styles like Northern Shaolin, Lan Shou Chuan, Pao Chui, vigorous external styles that involve a lot of movement, punching, kicking, perhaps leaping, but they're more vigorous styles that train the muscles, bones, and tendons. Styles like Baguazhong and Xing Yi Chuan, which are often categorized with Tai Chi Chuan as an internal martial art, those I would say it really depends how you're practicing at the moment and that day, whether they would be classed as practicing a Kung Fu style and adhering to these conditions I'm about to discuss, or it would fall strictly in the Tai Chi and the Qigong category. And if you're practicing Xing or Bagua and you're being very vigorous about it, you're moving a lot, you're exerting a lot of energy, you're practicing in a martial way, mentally preparing that you're thinking about being a martial artist and fighting, then the prohibitions relating to Kung Fu, they would apply to you. But if you're practicing in a very soft style and you're focusing more on the internal aspects, the mind, the Qi, and building your health, then you should consider the prohibitions on Qigong as applying to you at those times. So it really depends how you're practicing your Bagua and Xing Yi, whether the prohibitions on Qigong would apply to you or not. So looking at Kung Fu styles and how you train in them, is anger prohibited during practice as it is during Tai Chi and Qigong? Just like in Tai Chi and Qigong, you do not want to practice Kung Fu while you're angry. And this can lead to a number of negative consequences, just like it can in Tai Chi and Qigong practice. And in particular, this can really lead to a person becoming excessively angry all the time and even changing their personality. Practicing while you're angry is really inappropriate in most ways for martial arts training. Really, what we want to do with our martial arts training is learn how to channel that energy that is in the anger in a positive direction. So when we're talking about real Kung Fu, about Northern Shaolin or the other styles, we want to learn how to use that energy and the anger in a positive way. We want to build our fighting spirit. We want to channel it into aggressiveness at the right time and moment. We want to build our indomitable will. We want to learn how to have unshakable concentration. These are the appropriate ways to focus the energy that could end up in anger. Martial arts, you need to have fighting spirit. You need to have aggressiveness. If you don't, you really shouldn't be stepping in the ring to have a fight. There's a saying from World War II from our American paratroopers and commandos that goes like this: it's not what you do, it's how aggressively you do it that makes you a commando. So you could climb over a wall, or you can assault the wall like a commando with extreme aggressiveness. This is an appropriate way for a martial artist to channel the energy that would be anger. Instead of being angry, you can channel this to help build your fighting spirit and your aggressiveness. Another place that we want to develop as a martial artist is we want to develop our willpower, our indomitable will, so that you don't give up. Even if you're in a very tough situation, even if you're down on the ground and you've been hurt, if you're still there and you haven't given up, that's the indomitable willpower that you want as a martial artist. These qualities of mental strength are very, very important. Another thing that I think of when I think about how to develop my mind and strength as a martial artist is the unshakable concentration, that I'm able to focus on what I'm doing, focus on my opponent, or on the needs of the moment, even in a situation that's very stressful or very chaotic. As a martial artist, you would be expected to stay calm and focused and make good decisions, even surrounded by the noise and suddenness of a battlefield. Sometimes beginners or inexperienced coaches think that if people are training and they're angry, that it will help them to develop the qualities that they need as a martial artist, or that a martial artist should be angry, have a fierce anger to their fighting. Personally, I don't really think that's the right attitude. I think anger can control you and it can distract you, and it's not really what we want as a martial artist. Instead, as a martial artist, what we're really looking for is fighting spirit, appropriate aggressiveness, an indomitable will that will never give up, an unshakable concentration that won't be disturbed in the midst of chaos and noise, all sorts of distractions. By cultivating those qualities, you will become a much more profoundly capable martial artist, and you will level up your ability to help your friends and family in the most difficult situations. And this type of building your character and your strength, which at the very worst level could look like anger, is really what we're looking for. So rather than focusing on anger or relieving anger from the rest of your life in your Kung Fu training, focus on developing your fighting spirit. Focus on your aggressiveness and your sparring, as well as your control. Focus on your willpower, that even when the going gets tough, you're there, you're still going. And on building your concentration so you can't be distracted. One of the prohibitions in Tai Chi and Qigong training is to not train when you're too tired. This absolutely does apply to Kung Fu training as well. If you're really too tired, then you just need to eat some good food and rest and then train again later. However, it's also different in another way. In Kung Fu, it's perfectly all right. It's actually incredibly important that you push yourself. You're going to push yourself farther in your Kung Fu training than you will in your Tai Chi or Qigong training. If you're trying to build your health gradually, you don't push yourself all the way. You don't try and push your limits and break through them. But this is something that you're going to do in Kung Fu training and Northern Shaolin training. You're going to push your athleticism. You're going to push your strength. You're going to push your flexibility. You're going to challenge your balance and your coordination. And you're going to try and improve all of those qualities by really pushing it forward. So when you're doing Kung Fu, it's okay to train until you're absolutely exhausted and you can barely lift your arms or legs and move. That's great. Good for you. That's not how you train Tai Chi or Qigong, though. And in this area, it's different. Now, there's another aspect of training when you're tired, which is called floating Qi or rebellious Qi. And you definitely don't want to train when your Qi is floating or rebellious. And this will feel like you can't really sink your feet deeply into the ground. You can't ground yourself. And instead of being able to put some of your Qi into the earth and connect you to the earth and ground yourself, it's just floating and it's sort of dispersed. This is really a case of fatigue. You're either too mentally or emotionally or physically tired or all of those. This is a definite sign you don't want to practice. Let's talk about practicing when we're healthy and sick with Kung Fu. Now, with Tai Chi and Qigong, you can practice those in small quantities, even if you're quite ill, and then gradually build your health up. With the Kung Fu, you can do a little bit if you're sick, but it's not really the right thing. Rather than trying to do a hard workout in Kung Fu, if you're really sick, you shouldn't try and do it at all. You should go back to the Qigong and the Tai Chi. That being said, sometimes you can be having like a little light cold coming on and you're basically a very healthy person and you're under a little bit of assault environmentally perhaps or stress. Sometimes a really hard workout with a great sweat and you just push it all out, you don't even get sick. So this is one of those moments where you sort of need to know yourself and to know where you are in the process of becoming sick. If you're at the very first stage, it's just a very little outer layer. Sometimes you can do a good workout and blast it away. But if you're really sick, do easier things, rest, eat, and get well. Addressing the issue of bad odors. You don't want to practice Tai Chi or Qigong when you have strange or unfamiliar odors. That's absolutely the same thing with Northern Shaolin Kung Fu. You're breathing deeply. You don't want to inhale unknown things into your lungs. In the case of food and either being too hungry or too full, both of those are prohibited in Tai Chi and Qigong practice, and that's also pretty much the case in Kung Fu practice. If you're really too hungry, you just can't practice. You got to go eat some food. Let's get real here, okay? On the other hand, if you've just absolutely stuffed yourself and you can barely move, you shouldn't be doing a lot of vigorous exercise. Now, on the other hand, when I've been in real training mode and I'm working out many hours a day, and I'm pushing myself to level up or get ready for a big performance or competition, I'm expending a huge amount of calories every day. It's really all about where can I get enough food? It's not about being stuffed. Sometimes when you're training really hard like that, you eat a huge meal and the food just disappears. It's like it vanishes. I remember when I was really training my Northern Shaolin, often I would have 2 lunch plates for lunch. Not just one, I was basically having 2 lunches every day. And half hour later, I was ready to go. All that food was being digested very rapidly. So that's where you want to be in your Kung Fu training, is that you're just eating a lot because you're training constantly really hard. There's a prohibition in Tai Chi and Qigong practice about finding a safe place where you won't be subjected to sudden noises and sounds that could startle you. If you're practicing Kung Fu, actually it should not be possible for you to be suddenly startled or surprised. You should be really aware of your circumstances, your surroundings, who is around you, what all the sounds around you mean, and what's going on. This is part of your Kung Fu, part of your self-awareness, your self-defense awareness. that you're tactically aware of your situation so that you can't be snuck up on, you can't be surprised. I'd like to give a little example of just sounds and relating to sounds while you're training. I used to teach in a huge hall. It's a very large old building, and it was surrounded by even larger oak trees. And I'd have a huge class in there full of kids, and they're screaming and running around and doing all their stuff. We're leading these very exciting classes, and they're doing a whole bunch of things. The acorns would fall and then hit the roof and then roll down and fall off and hit the ground. And I would hear this happen all class long. But I think I was the only person in the room that actually heard the acorns fall. And one day I pointed out to all the students, do you guys hear the acorns falling? You know, that they hit the roof and they roll down. And once I pointed it out and the people really concentrated, they could hear the acorns falling. So part of our skill here is that if you're listening to your own mind, if you're listening to your own thoughts and emotions and judgments about everything, and you're absorbed in that, it's hard to hear these subtler sounds, these subtler things around you. So part of our training is to be able to quiet ourselves inside, to develop our concentration, and to be deeply and profoundly aware of what's around us. Then you can't really be surprised. You know, hearing the acorn hit the roof is one thing. Hearing the acorn snap off the twig, that's even better. In regards to practicing near stagnant water, this is still prohibited in the practice of Kung Fu. You still don't want to get landed on by mosquitoes. So I would avoid those situations. In regards to wind, practicing while you're subjected to some wind, this is a very strong prohibition in Tai Chi and Qigong that you should avoid getting hit by a direct wind. In the Northern Shaolin Kung Fu, the Lan Shou Chuan, or other styles of external Kung Fu, this isn't quite the same. You can endure wind and you can endure the elements, and this can become part of your training. However, you do want to be prepared for it. Having some adequate clothing on is a first start. But in addition to that, you want to be doing something vigorous if you're going to be outside in a cold or windy situation. You want to be really moving your body and pumping your blood and building up your heat. And in the process, this is going to fluff up your outer chi, your defensive chi, all around your body, sort of like the deflector shields on the Starship Enterprise. You're going to fluff up your outer chi and vigorously move and pump your blood. And then this will pump up your defensive layer and help you to not get sick or to suffer the exposure from wind. This isn't really something that a beginning student really would want to practice. This is more of a thing for more advanced students who have some more skill and they've already built up some of their qi and their dantian. And if your qi and your dantian is very strong and you're able to really fill it up and fluff up your outer qi, then that will give you some definite protection against the wind. At the more advanced level, there's different ways that people will test themselves, try and build themselves up as a really strong martial artist. I'd like to tell a little story now about Gishin Funakoshi, who is the founder of Modern Karate Do. There's a story about him in his house in Okinawa. This is a very intense and tough martial artist trying to reach masterful levels of skill. So Okinawa has very fierce typhoons, and their houses are built to withstand them. What he would do is when the typhoon came, he would go out in the typhoon and stand on the ridgeline of his house and hold up a tatami mat and see how long he could stand in his horse stance, holding up the mat with his knees bent deeply until the wind blew him off the roof. And then he'd pick himself up out of the mud, climb back up on the roof and hold up the tatami mat again and see how long he could hold it until he was blown off. And he'd do this over and over again, and everybody thought he was nuts. Let me tell you, that guy had one heck of a horse stance. So this is a situation where he is at a high level of training and he's using the wind and the elements to help himself, challenge himself, and improve himself. You wouldn't want to stand on the roof in a typhoon and try and do Qigong or Tai Chi. Wrong idea. This covers the list of prohibitions that we discussed in protecting your qi in the previous episode. I hope this will help you to guide your training in the classical combat-oriented Kung Fu like Northern Shaolin, Lan Shou Chuan, or Pao Chui. Now I'd like to address Sean's question regarding negative emotions and difficulties and traumas while practicing Qigong. When we have emotional traumas or pain, practicing self-reflection and self-forgiveness and forgiveness of others really help. They're most often the key. Patience and time help too. Your Qigong can help, and the Qigong that you practice can help you to release energy that's stuck in your body, and it can also help you to open the channels and meridian and rebalance the flow of energy around your body. There's also an aspect of strengthening the organs, which are related to the different emotions, to help you support having a healthy emotional life from an organic organ level within your body. However, as you relax and open your body during your Qigong practice, it's also really easy for you at some point to begin to encounter some of your past traumas and pain that you may have still locked in your body. Sometimes what can happen is there's something which causes us some pain. It could be anger, it could be fear, it could be sadness, it could be any number of other emotions. And as we experience and react to this event and we experience those emotions, we may hold on to some of it. We may hold on to some of the anger and pain and not release it. And that can become trapped in our body. And as you go through a process of working your Qigong, you can encounter layers of tension from the past where you tensed your body, you tensed your muscles as part of an emotional reaction to something happening. And even after that situation that created the initial reaction has long passed, your body is still tense. Your body is still reacting to that previous episode, and that reaction is somewhat trapped into your body. And this can deform your posture. You could be literally walking around with an angry chip on your shoulder, and your body is still suffering some effects from that angry episode or sad episode many years later. So as we begin to unwind these layers with our body, we may remember past traumas that we had buried. They may become alive again, and you begin to re-experience them. And this can be really unpleasant because the original episode was very unpleasant and we tried to bury it and forget it and hide it. But burying it and forgetting it and hiding a past emotional trauma does not heal it. You really can't heal these things until you can touch them and connect to them. And retouching something like this or reconnecting to it can be a bit of a bummer. And it might be unexpected. You think, oh, I'm going to have a beautiful session today and I'm going to stand and breathe and relax. And at some point you remember something that happened to you many years ago and you're re-experiencing those emotions. And that is a moment where you can experience some very profound healing. And at that moment, that's when you need to use your power of reflection and to learn anything from that episode that you can. There must be some lesson, some insight that you didn't yet achieve, or some part of that where you haven't really forgiven yourself or forgiven other people. And if you can learn all the lessons from an incident and then forgive yourself, forgive other people, you're ready to move on. And you can use those moments then to draw the energy out of the past, to free up that emotional energy that's trapped and to put it back into circulation throughout your system. And you'll know you've been successful with this because then when you look at that incident again in your mind, instead of it being glaring and full color and high volume, it's flat, it's colorless, and it doesn't have the energy or meaning that it used to in the past. This type of work with your emotions and healing incidents from your past can be incredibly profound, and it can affect your health deeply. Another aspect of this question is, can Qigong heal emotional difficulties? And by emotional difficulties, if what you mean is actual mental illness, I think it's very unlikely that Qigong or Tai Chi will be successful in treating any type of actual mental illness. I've been teaching Tai Chi and Qigong now for over 30 years. And for many years, for decades, I taught in Berkeley, California, and I pretty much accepted anybody who came in the door. I was trying to help people. Berkeley actually has got its fair share of crazy people, and sometimes you don't realize somebody has a mental health issue when you first meet them. But gradually you start to realize, oh, this person really has some issues. And sometimes when people come in, they're hoping to treat their mental health issues by Tai Chi or Qigong. And my experience has been that if you have an unstable system, you shouldn't add more energy to it. If you have an unstable system and you add more energy to it, it flies more wildly out of balance. It becomes more imbalanced, and that can happen relatively quickly. So my personal policy based on this experience is I don't teach people that have mental health issues, that have serious problems. I really think that they should be doing something else to improve their health. And I certainly don't teach people with mental health issues any type of classical combat-oriented Kung Fu. It's just not the right thing to do. Thank you for listening. You can ask a question at practice@10,000victories.com. Thank you for subscribing and sharing. Until next time, be well and stay happy.